Hey, it's Brandon. Brandon Talks Movies. I'm here at HorrorFest International with Andy Matthews and Aaron Tharp, the directors for The Ghost in the Road. Mm-hmm. Thank you guys for being here. I love the short, and I'm excited to for the rest of the audience to get a chance to see it. We haven't screened it yet, but glad you guys could take a few minutes and chat with us about the film. So my first question, as always, tell us about the creation of this idea, where this came from. I'd love to hear about it.
Sure. So it started as just kind of, as most of our ideas do, we just kind of chat every once in a while we're working, like, hey, what about this idea? What about that? And we have this like document full of just random stuff. It's like, what if cheese came from space, or just something stupid like that? Like, and in this case, it was, what if a trick-or-treater came knocking at 3 a.m.? That was the genesis of, like, because there's kind of this unsaid rule that after a certain point, trick-or-treating is done. It's no longer cute, it's no longer fun, it's now wrong if you go knocking at a certain time. And 3 a.m. being kind of the witching hour, we're like, well, that's like kind of that precipice point where it switches over. And we're like, okay, that's all right, you know, that's fine. But then we're like, yeah, put that away. And then we were having another conversation where it was like, okay, what if we had this scene where it's like completely disconnected from this idea? It's like a car, and it's like it's crashed, and we kind of come down and we see candy, and then we see blood. And it's like, and the kind of idea of these little pieces of a story that, like, oh my gosh, someone hit this trick-or-treater.
It kind of starts to come together.
Yeah, exactly. These kind of two ideas that we had, it was actually kind of a really cool moment, because we kind of, Aaron was like, yeah, I really like this idea, sort of this aftermath of this kind of car crash thing. And I was like, dude, what if we smush these together? And that's kind of how it developed. And then, the story just sort of solidified from that point. But yeah, that's usually how it goes for us, is like we'll have a lot of ideas and they kind of sit on the shelf and percolate for a while. And then eventually it comes to a point where we get that last little piece of the puzzle and it kind of clicks into place. So
awesome. Yeah. Tell me a little bit about kind of, because obviously your trick-or-treater starts off as just seemingly a kid in a ghost costume, but obviously it kind of evolves from there. Tell me about the process of designing, creating kind of the evolution of this trick-or-treater.
Sure. Do you want to take it?
I think a big shout out needs to be given to Aspen Rain, who was our special effects makeup person. We came to her with the idea, and this was kind of Aaron's terminology for it, was like that we'll have the sort of little innocent version of the ghost, and then we'll have the hell ghost, is what we call it. And the idea was basically sort of tied to the theme, where it's like, if you run away from your problems, they only get bigger. And so that kind of motivated this idea of, like, when we sort of come back, that the creature has grown and has become more grotesque, and it's sort of this idea of like rotting flesh. And Aspen drafted up, she sketched out a bunch of ideas, and she kind of like came to us and was like, what do you like? What are you responding to? And then she kind of went away and came back with this like sort of concept for us, and we're like, yes, that's great. And you know, we had a little bit of input on it and stuff, but the idea was basically that it's like it's sort of the physical manifestation of his guilt that's like grown over time.
Yeah, it was actually a pretty disturbing process, to be honest, because we hadn't worked with a prosthetic artist like this so in-depthly. And she came and she brought actual like photos of like real accidents happened. Like, do you like this? Do you like that? Yeah. It's like we could embed like rocks in their face. Yeah, what kind of road rash do you prefer? It was just like, whoa, all right. And so we really tried hard on the details. So like, for example, there's one side of his face that's particularly damaged. And so we had that for our unfortunate child. And then when we did the hell version of that, it is reflected in that. So it's the same thing. His clear eye is coming through just like it is for him, for the young version. And so we tried really hard to just make them cohesive between the small and large version.
And I think a huge, another huge nod that we need to give is to Ethan Karchner, who played the Hell Ghost. He was a very last-minute sub-in. We had some casting issues, and the person that we had originally contacted when we moved the schedule around wasn't able to do it. And Ethan jumped in, and he had like a beard, and he had never done prosthetics or like or contacts before. And we were like, "Hey, are you cool with this?" And he really just like ate it up and was so excited to jump in and do it. And he had just like the right physicality, and you know, we pushed him back and forth on a dolly like 1,000 times, and he was just awesome. So yeah, it was like all those ingredients came together, and it just made for something that we were really excited by. So yeah.
Awesome. My next question for you guys, immediately one of the things that stood out to me is the score. I love the music in this short. Tell me about your process of working with your composer who worked on the music, what influenced kind of the direction of that soundtrack, because I loved it.
So we originally looked at kind of temporary music that fit the vibe and the style we were going for. We really, really wanted to embody the nostalgic 80s horror of Halloween, because often, like, when you think of just kind of 80s horror, it kind of has that kind of monochromatic sort of, not that there's anything wrong with that, but that just kind of sharp ping. But we wanted something with soul, is what it came down to, because a lot of it is the fact that this is a story that's tragic. This is a tragic story. Both of our characters, being our man and our little ghost, have gone through this horrible thing, but wrongs need to be righted. Things need to be made right. So when it came to the music, we wanted to make sure it reflected that. So actually, when we worked with our composer, Reg, who's in the UK, awesome guy, fantastic, we talked to him that we really wanted a clear theme that could repeat throughout the film that reflected what was going on for the child in question. So it's introduced in the very beginning, and then it comes back again during our flashbacks and our final climax. We want it to be the idea that things are wrong, but then they are made right by the end. And so hopefully it's reflected in the score.
Yeah, and we also edited the movie, and a lot of times we don't work with temp tracks because various reasons, but the biggest one being that you kind of get married to it. And we cut this movie using temp tracks from the movie Summer of '84, the score by Lematos, and we just really loved it, really loved it. And so we went to Richard Breakspear, Reg, our composer, and we were like, hey, we hate to do this. We don't want to lock you into a box, but we are super in love with this, and we kind of need you to to prove us wrong.
To divorce us.
And I was like, yeah, exactly, yeah. And so and he was like, say no more, I got this. And we pointed him to some different scores. We were like, hey, we really love John Carpenter's stuff. And so that vibe is always a good direction to run. And yeah, he came back to us and we worked out this theme, and very quickly we were like, hell yeah, this is great. And then it just evolved from there, and Reg killed it, and just it I can't imagine it with any other music now, so it's great.
Awesome. And I've asked this question to a few other people. I love short films, and I kind of think of them almost as kind of like a wine that can pair with a nice meal. And if we kind of view a short film as a potential pairing with a feature, which we do a lot here, what's kind of like the dream feature that you'd love to pair Ghost in the Road with?
When you say pair, do you mean like do we want to make something more?
If you had one film that already exists out there that you could show after this as like a little double feature, what would you?
Okay, cool.
It's got to be Trick or Treat.
Yeah.
I mean, Trick or Treat. I mean, there's no doubt that there was huge inspiration, tone, vibe, just the like I said, what was the phrase we used? It was
kind of like autumnal Halloween atmosphere of everything.
The atmosphere of Halloween. We really wanted to embody that, because even sometimes you can have movies, again, no shade thrown at other movies, but sometimes it's Halloween, but there's a pumpkin and that's it,
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't want that. We really wanted to feel like you were feeling like you were a kid again. What it felt like to be out in Halloween in our very very small scale of what we could do with the time, but we wanted to embody that soul a lot. So I think Trick or Treat does that in spades. So, and it's just a kick-ass movie. So.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you guys taking the time. Thank you for bringing Ghost in the Road here to HorrorFest. I'm so excited to get to watch it again. Thank you for, again, taking the time. And I'm Brandon from HorrorFest International. Stay tuned.